What if I told you that the very words coming out of your mouth right now are either making you a millionaire or keeping you broke? Think about this for a moment. Every morning you wake up, and the first words you speak are literally programming your financial reality. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but with the same creative force that spoke the universe into existence. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Yet most people have no idea they're walking around with a loaded weapon in their mouth, either building wealth or destroying it with every casual comment, every unconscious complaint, every throwaway phrase about money. Here's what's fascinating about human behavior. We've been taught that wealth comes from working harder, getting better jobs, making smarter investments, or finding the right opportunities. Has this ever happened to you? You've tried all the traditional methods, the budgeting, the side hustles, the networking events, yet somehow true financial breakthrough remains just out of reach? That's because you've been trying to solve a spiritual problem with physical solutions. The revolutionary truth that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered over a century ago, and what quantum physics is now proving, is that you don't become wealthy. You reveal wealth that already exists in the invisible realm. Right now, as you're watching this video, there's a version of you in the spiritual dimension who is already a multimillionaire. Every contract, every opportunity, every dollar that will ever flow into your life is already complete in what she called the invisible warehouse of divine supply. But here's where it gets mind-bending. And stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. The only thing standing between you and that spiritual wealth is not your education, your background, your connections, or even your current circumstances. It's the words you speak, not just the formal declarations you might make in prayer or meditation, but every single word that flows from your lips throughout the day. When you say, "I can't afford that," you're not describing your current bank balance. You're issuing a legal command to the universe to maintain your lack. When you complain about bills, joke about being broke, or casually mention how expensive everything is, you're not just making conversation. You're legislating your financial reality through the court of divine law. This isn't about positive thinking or manifestation techniques you might have heard before. This is about understanding that your words carry the same creative authority that God used when He declared, "Let there be light." You see, when you say, "I am," you're not describing a desire or stating a goal. You're wielding divine authority. You're stepping into the same creative power that shaped the cosmos. Most people have been unconsciously using this power in reverse. They speak their fears instead of their faith, their problems instead of their provision, their current limitations instead of their divine identity. And then they wonder why their financial situation never seems to change despite all their efforts and hard work. The ancient wisdom traditions knew this secret. The mystics understood it. Successful people throughout history have stumbled upon it, often without realizing the spiritual principles they were activating. But now, for the first time, you're going to understand exactly how to harness this power deliberately and systematically. If you're serious about transforming your relationship with money through spiritual authority, and you want more of these profound revelations delivered regularly, hit that subscribe button. I'm here to guide you through this journey of financial awakening, one powerful truth at a time. What you're about to learn isn't theory. It's the exact spiritual technology that has created millionaires throughout history. The same principles that transformed a struggling artist into a financial success, that turned impossible situations into miraculous breakthroughs, that converted empty bank accounts into overflowing abundance. But first, you need to understand why everything you've been taught about wealth creation has been keeping you trapped in a cycle of financial limitation, and how a simple shift in the words you speak can unlock the hidden truth about your divine financial identity that's been buried under years of societal programming. You see, there's a specific phrase that acts as a master key to the treasury of heaven, and it's been hiding in plain sight your entire life. When Moses encountered the burning bush and asked God for his name, the response wasn't a casual introduction. It was the revelation of the most powerful creative force in the universe. I am that I am. This wasn't poetry or religious symbolism. This was God revealing the fundamental password that unlocks all creation. Every time you say, I am, you're not just making a statement about yourself. You're accessing the same divine authority that spoke galaxies into existence. But here's the revelation that will transform your entire approach to wealth. Most people have been using this sacred password to lock themselves into poverty instead of unlocking abundance. Think about the transformation that happens in your mind when you realize that saying, I am broke, carries the exact same creative power as saying, I am wealthy. The universe doesn't distinguish between what you want and what you don't want. It simply responds to the authority behind your words. When you declare, I am struggling, you're using divine power to create struggle. When you say, I am trying to make ends meet, you're programming yourself to remain in a state of trying, never actually succeeding. This is where the journey becomes truly fascinating. Behind the scenes of every successful person's life, you'll find this principle operating whether they consciously understood it or not. They spoke their identity before they lived it. They declared their success before they achieved it. They aligned their mouth with their vision, not their current circumstances. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a crucial mindset shift that must happen before any external transformation can occur. Right now, in this very moment, you are already wealthy in the spiritual realm. Your divine nature lacks nothing. The gap between where you are financially and where you want to be isn't actually a gap of time, effort, or external resources. It's a gap of alignment between what you say and what heaven already knows to be true about you. This revelation changes everything about your approach to money and success. Instead of trying to become wealthy, you're simply bringing your spoken words into agreement with your spiritual reality. Instead of working to create abundance, you're allowing your mouth to catch up with heaven's perspective of your identity. The impact of this understanding is immediate and profound. When you speak from your divine identity rather than your current circumstances, something shifts in the very atmosphere around you. Opportunities begin to notice you. People start responding to you differently. Doors that seemed permanently closed begin to crack open. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally speaking the language that the universe recognizes as authentic divine authority. But there's a hidden aspect to this process that most people miss entirely, and it's the reason why some people can declare wealth for years without seeing results, while others experience rapid transformation. The secret lies in understanding that your current financial situation isn't actually the problem that needs to be solved. It's simply the physical manifestation of whatever spiritual identity you've been unconsciously declaring through your words. This means that every complaint about money, every casual comment about being broke, every joke about your financial situation has been a prayer answered in reverse. You've been unconsciously using divine creative power to maintain the very limitations you thought you were trying to escape. The beautiful part of this discovery is that the same power that created your current situation can instantly begin creating a new one. The moment you align your spoken words with your divine identity, heaven begins rearranging circumstances to match what you're declaring, not because you deserve it, but because spiritual law requires the invisible to become visible when spoken with genuine authority. Write in the comments, I'm ready to align my words with heaven if this revelation is connecting with something deep inside you, because what we're about to explore next will show you exactly how to make this alignment practical and immediate in your daily life. The transformation that happens when you understand this principle is nothing short of revolutionary, because most people have been practicing faith completely backwards their entire lives. Here's what I discovered that changed everything about my approach to wealth creation. Faith was never meant to be a quiet, internal experience where you silently hope and wait for God to move on your behalf. That's not faith. That's spiritual passivity disguised as virtue. True faith is the bold, audible declaration of divine truth, regardless of what your current circumstances are screaming at you. This revelation completely shifts your entire mindset about how the universe operates. You see, behind the scenes of every miraculous financial breakthrough, every unexpected opportunity, every coincidental meeting that changed someone's life, there was a moment when someone stopped whispering prayers and started speaking decrees. They stopped asking God to do something and started exercising the authority He already gave them through their words. The hidden truth that religious institutions rarely teach is that God wasn't waiting to bless you. He was waiting for you to speak your blessing into existence. Every moment you spent in silent hope, every prayer where you begged for provision, every quiet meditation where you visualized wealth, you were actually postponing your breakthrough because you weren't using the creative mechanism that heaven recognizes: your voice. Your tongue isn't just a muscle in your mouth. It's literally the throne from which you govern your entire financial kingdom. When you speak, you're not having a conversation or expressing an opinion. You're issuing royal decrees that echo through the invisible realm and command all substance to rearrange itself according to your words. Think about the profound impact this has on your daily decisions. Every time you open your mouth, you're either expanding your kingdom or shrinking it. Every casual comment about money is actually a legislative session where you're passing laws that will govern your financial future. Every joke about being broke is a judicial ruling that maintains your poverty. Every complaint about prices is an executive order that keeps abundance at bay. This is why Scripture says, "Let the weak say I am strong, let the poor say I am rich." It's not encouraging people to lie or deny reality. It's revealing the secret mechanism by which spiritual authority operates. Your voice doesn't describe your reality. Your voice creates your reality. The moment you understand this, everything changes. If this content created a real shift in how you think about money and the power of your voice, show me by hitting that like button. When you engage with these videos, it tells me that these deep spiritual truths are landing exactly where they need to, and it genuinely means something to me. The journey from financial struggle to abundance isn't about learning new strategies or finding better opportunities. It's about recognizing that your mouth has been functioning as a gavel in heaven's courtroom this entire time, and you've been unconsciously banging it to maintain the very limitations you thought you were trying to escape. But here's where the revelations get even more profound. When you begin to speak with genuine spiritual authority, something shifts not just in your bank account, but in the very atmosphere around you. People start treating you differently. Opportunities begin seeking you out instead of you chasing them. Money starts flowing through channels you never even knew existed. This happens because the universe recognizes authentic authority when it hears it. When you stop speaking as a victim of circumstances and start speaking as the divine heir you actually are, all of creation takes notice. Your words begin carrying a frequency that magnetizes wealth, opens doors, and creates what others call miraculous timing. The beautiful part of this transformation is that it's immediate. You don't have to wait to accumulate years of experience or develop complicated skills. The moment you align your speech with your divine identity, the very next words out of your mouth begin reshaping your financial reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily practice that can accelerate this entire process, and it's something you can start implementing before you even finish watching this video. But first, You need to understand the crucial difference between speaking from your circumstances and speaking from your authority, because this distinction will determine whether your words create breakthrough or maintain bondage. Write in the comments, "My voice creates my reality," if you're beginning to see how your own words have been shaping your financial experience, because what I'm about to share will show you exactly how to turn your daily speech into a wealth-generating system. The moment you grasp this principle, your entire relationship with money undergoes a radical transformation. You stop chasing wealth and start commanding it. You stop begging for opportunities and start decreeing them into existence. You realize that every dollar you've ever wanted, every contract you've dreamed of, every financial breakthrough you've been seeking has been sitting in the invisible realm, waiting patiently for one thing: your spoken command. This revelation completely dismantles the traditional mindset about how wealth is created. The hidden truth is that money isn't rare, scarce, or difficult to obtain. It's simply obedient. It responds to authority, and the highest authority in the universe is the spoken word aligned with divine truth. When you understand this, you stop approaching your finances from a position of need and start operating from a position of dominion. Behind the scenes of what most people call financial struggle, there's actually a very specific spell being cast continuously through their daily speech patterns. Every time someone says, "I can't afford it," they're not stating a fact about their bank account. They're issuing a creative command that ensures they won't be able to afford it. Every casual complaint about money, every joke about being broke, every sarcastic comment about the cost of things is literally an incantation that maintains their financial limitations. The profound impact of this understanding is that it reveals poverty as nothing more than a confession repeated so frequently that the person speaking it forgets they were the magician who cast the spell in the first place. It's not a condition imposed by external circumstances, economic systems, or bad luck. It's a creative decree that's been unconsciously maintained through the misuse of divine creative power. This is why some people can work incredibly hard, make smart decisions, and follow all the conventional financial advice, yet still struggle with money their entire lives. Meanwhile, others seem to effortlessly attract wealth without apparent effort or strategy. The difference isn't talent, education, connections, or even opportunity. It's the frequency of their daily speech patterns. Your journey toward financial transformation begins the moment you recognize that your mouth has been functioning as a magic wand this entire time, and you've been unconsciously waving it over your circumstances, creating exactly what you've been speaking. The beautiful part is that the same creative power that built your current limitations can instantly begin constructing your abundance. When you shift from speaking your circumstances to speaking your authority, something extraordinary happens in the invisible realm. The wealth that's been waiting for your command suddenly has permission to move. The opportunities that have been circling your life finally have clearance to land. The money that's been trying to find you through various channels suddenly has a clear signal to follow. This transformation doesn't require years of personal development or complex manifestation techniques. It's as immediate as your next spoken word. The moment you stop confessing lack and start decreeing abundance, you activate spiritual forces that have been dormant, waiting for your voice to give them direction. The revelations become even more powerful when you realize that every successful person throughout history has stumbled onto this principle, whether they understood the spiritual mechanics or not. They spoke their success before they achieved it. They declared their wealth before they possessed it. They commanded their opportunities before they appeared. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that fear tries to sabotage this entire process. And if you don't recognize its tactics, it can undo months or even years of spoken declarations in a single moment of doubt. But first, you need to understand the crucial difference between speaking from your current circumstances and speaking from your divine identity, because this distinction determines whether your words create expansion or maintain limitation. Write in the comments, "I command my wealth now," if you're ready to stop confessing poverty and start decreeing abundance, because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to protect your spoken declarations from the most dangerous enemy of financial breakthrough. The most mind-bending revelation in all of this is that you weren't created to be a spectator of creation. You were designed to be a participant in it. When Scripture says you're made in God's image, it's not talking about physical appearance or personality traits. It's revealing that you carry within you the exact same creative mechanism that spoke the universe into existence. Think about the profound impact this has on your entire approach to life. God's first recorded act wasn't working, planning, strategizing, or even thinking. It was speaking, "Let there be light." This wasn't a casual comment or a hopeful wish. It was a divine decree that instantly transformed the invisible into the visible. That same creative blueprint, that exact same power, lives within your mouth right now. The transformation that occurs when you truly grasp this is extraordinary. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has to earn, achieve, or attract wealth through external means. Instead, you recognize that you have the same authority that created galaxies, formed mountains, and established the laws of physics. Your voice carries the power to call forth the unseen into visible form. But here's where the journey becomes fascinating and, frankly, a bit disturbing when you realize what's been happening behind the scenes of your financial life. Most people have been using this divine creative authority in complete reverse. Instead of speaking what they desire, they've been unconsciously declaring what they dread. Instead of calling forth abundance, they've been summoning limitation through their daily speech patterns. This hidden truth explains why so many people feel stuck in repetitive financial cycles despite their best efforts. They're not lacking creativity, intelligence, or opportunity. They're reversing heaven's creative current through the words they speak. Every time they voice a fear about money, complain about expenses, or joke about being broke, they're taking the same power that God used to create light and using it to create darkness in their financial world. The revelations become even more profound when you understand that this isn't just about the formal declarations you might make during prayer or meditation. Your inner speech patterns, those continuous mental conversations you have with yourself throughout the day, are constantly shaping your external circumstances. The unconscious commentary running through your mind about money, success, and your worthiness is literally programming your reality. Most people have no idea that they're walking around with an internal radio station broadcasting limitation 24 hours a day. They'll make positive declarations in the morning, then spend the rest of the day mentally rehearsing their problems, worrying about bills, and talking themselves out of opportunities. They're using divine creative power to water weeds of doubt instead of harvesting gardens of abundance. This explains why traditional goal setting and positive thinking often fail to produce lasting results. People focus on changing their external actions while completely ignoring the internal dialogue that's constantly creating their circumstances. They're trying to plant flowers in soil they're simultaneously poisoning with fearful thoughts and limiting beliefs expressed through their inner voice. The beautiful part of this discovery is that once you recognize what's been happening, you can immediately begin redirecting this creative power. The same authority that's been unconsciously maintaining your limitations can consciously begin constructing your breakthrough. It's not about developing new abilities. It's about aligning the abilities you already possess with the outcomes you actually desire. If today's message stirred something deep in your spirit, if you can sense that your financial breakthrough is connected to mastering the power of your spoken word, then you belong in this community. Subscribe to the channel because this conversation is far from over. We're just getting started on unlocking the spiritual secrets of true wealth. When you begin speaking from your divine nature instead of your circumstances, something shifts in the very fabric of your reality. Opportunities start appearing that seem perfectly timed. People begin showing up in your life who have exactly what you need. Money starts flowing through channels you never anticipated. Not because you're manipulating the universe, but because you're finally cooperating with the creative laws that have been trying to work in your favor all along. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily practice that can help you identify and transform these unconscious speech patterns. And it's something that can create immediate shifts in your financial reality. But first, you need to understand the crucial difference between speaking from your inherited identity versus speaking from your chosen identity, because this distinction will determine whether your words create limitation or liberation. Write in the comments, "I speak from my divine nature," if you're ready to stop using your creative power in reverse and start aligning your voice with your true spiritual authority. Because what I'm about to share will revolutionize how you approach every conversation about money from this moment forward. The most liberating revelation you can experience is recognizing that poverty was never your spiritual inheritance. For too long, religious and cultural programming has convinced people that financial struggle is somehow virtuous, that lack is a test of character, or that God deliberately keeps certain people poor to teach them humility. This is perhaps the most destructive lie ever told about your divine nature. Your true inheritance isn't poverty, struggle, or just barely making ends meet. Your spiritual DNA carries the blueprint of abundance because you're a direct descendant of the Creator who spoke abundance into existence. When you understand this at the deepest level, it transforms every decision you make about money and every word you speak about your financial future. The hidden truth behind most people's financial limitations is that they've unconsciously entered into agreements with lack. These aren't formal contracts signed with their name. They're spiritual agreements made through repetitive speech, patterns that have convinced the universe they prefer limitation over abundance. Every time someone says, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "We can't afford that," or "Rich people are greedy," they're signing another clause in their poverty contract. This journey of transformation requires you to recognize that speaking like a slave will never allow you to walk like a sovereign. Most people have inherited poverty consciousness from their families, communities, and cultures, and they continue to speak from that inherited limitation rather than their chosen divine identity. They use their voice to maintain agreements their ancestors made with lack, passing down financial struggle like a family heirloom instead of breaking the cycle with their words. The profound impact of this understanding is that you have the authority to cancel every agreement you've ever made with limitation. You don't need anyone's permission to declare your freedom from poverty consciousness. You don't have to wait for external circumstances to change before you start speaking from your divine inheritance. You can repossess your tongue right now and re-sanctify it in truth. Behind the scenes of every financial breakthrough, there's always a moment when someone decided to stop speaking from their circumstances and start speaking from their authority. They stopped agreeing with the narrative that they couldn't have, be, or do what their heart desired. They broke the unconscious contracts they'd inherited and began speaking new agreements into existence. This is where the revelations become intensely personal. You have to audit your own speech patterns and identify where you've been unconsciously agreeing with limitation. Every casual comment about money being tight, every joke about being broke, every complaint about prices has been a signature on a contract that maintains your financial limitations. The beautiful part of this discovery is that the same power that created these agreements can instantly dissolve them. The moment you declare, "I cancel every contract I've made with poverty consciousness," you activate spiritual forces that begin dismantling the invisible barriers that have been blocking your abundance. When you say, "I am supplied, I am wealthy, I am sourced by divine law," you're not making hopeful statements. You're issuing legal documents in the court of heaven. This transformation doesn't happen gradually over months or years. It begins the instant you stop speaking from your inherited limitations and start speaking from your chosen divine identity. Your tongue becomes the instrument through which you reclaim your spiritual birthright and align your earthly experience with your heavenly inheritance. The mindset shift that occurs when you truly embrace this principle is extraordinary. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has to earn wealth and start recognizing yourself as someone who simply needs to claim what's already yours. You stop begging for opportunities and start commanding them. You stop hoping for financial breakthrough and start decreeing it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that fear attempts to sabotage this entire process, and it's so subtle that most people don't recognize they're being manipulated back into poverty consciousness. The enemy of your financial breakthrough isn't external opposition or economic conditions. It's the internal voice that tries to convince you that speaking from your divine authority is somehow arrogant, unrealistic, or spiritually inappropriate. Write in the comments, "I cancel all contracts with lack," if you're ready to break every agreement you've made with limitation and start speaking from your true spiritual inheritance. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to protect your new declarations from the most dangerous form of self-sabotage. The most dangerous form of self-sabotage isn't what you consciously say about money. It's the unconscious labels you've accepted about your identity. Right now, there are voices in your head telling you that you're broke, stuck, behind, unqualified, or just barely surviving. These aren't observations about your current circumstances. They're spiritual curses disguised as realism, and every time you agree with them, you strengthen their hold over your financial reality. Here's the transformation that must happen in your mind before any external change can occur. You need to completely reject every lie that's been told about your condition. You are not broke. You are divine substance temporarily experiencing limitation because you've been speaking from the wrong identity. You are not stuck. You are infinite potential that's been channeled into scarcity through unconscious agreements with lack. The journey to reclaiming your true identity requires you to see yourself as you actually are in the spiritual realm, a voice of wealth in human form, a steward of God's unlimited storehouse, a walking embodiment of divine abundance who simply forgot there was a crown in your pocket. This isn't motivational thinking or positive psychology. This is spiritual fact that becomes physical reality the moment you align your speech with it. Behind the scenes of every millionaire's success story, there's a moment when they stopped speaking from their circumstances and started speaking from their potential. They didn't wait for investors to validate their worth, business plans to guarantee their success, or lucky breaks to change their situation. Their wealth began with a single word spoken in absolute spiritual certainty, a word that carried heaven's frequency and commanded the invisible realm to rearrange itself accordingly. This revelation completely dismantles the traditional mindset about wealth creation. The hidden truth is that nothing ever appeared in their hands that hadn't first been issued by their tongue. They spoke their first million into existence before they ever earned their first dollar. They declared their success daily as established reality, not as a hopeful request to some distant deity who might or might not decide to bless them. The profound impact of this understanding is that it places the creative power exactly where it belongs, in your mouth, not in your circumstances. You stop waiting for external validation, perfect timing, or ideal conditions. You realize that your voice is the only permission slip you need to access the abundance that's already been allocated to you in the spiritual dimension. When you begin speaking from this level of spiritual authority, something extraordinary happens in the invisible realm. Your words don't just float around as wishful thinking. They become divine commands that activate spiritual forces, align circumstances, and magnetize resources toward you. The universe begins responding to the frequency of certainty rather than the vibration of hope, need, or desperation. This transformation happens because your words are finally matching your divine nature instead of contradicting it. You're no longer speaking as someone who lacks wealth. You're speaking as someone who embodies it. You're not describing what you want to become. You're declaring what you already are in the realm of spirit and commanding the physical world to catch up with spiritual reality. The beautiful part of this process is that it bypasses every traditional barrier to wealth creation. You don't need perfect credit, advanced degrees, or influential connections. You don't need to wait for market conditions to improve or opportunities to present themselves. Your spoken word becomes the bridge between your current circumstances and your divine inheritance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily protocol that can accelerate this entire process, but it requires understanding the crucial difference between speaking from emotion versus speaking from spiritual law. Most people's declarations fail because they're powered by feeling rather than faith, and this distinction determines whether your words create temporary motivation or permanent transformation. Write in the comments, "I am divine substance in human form," if you're ready to stop identifying with limitation and start speaking from your true spiritual identity, because what I'm about to share will give you the exact daily practice that turns spoken words into manifest wealth. The most profound shift in your financial journey happens when you stop using your mouth to describe what is and start using it to declare what must be. This isn't about denial or pretending your current circumstances don't exist. It's about understanding that your voice carries legislative authority over your reality. And every time you speak, you're either reinforcing your current limitations or commanding your breakthrough. Most people wake up each morning and immediately check their bank accounts, review their bills, and rehearse their problems, using their first words of the day to cement yesterday's limitations into today's experience. But when you understand that your mouth is literally God's instrument on earth, everything changes. You stop being a reporter of circumstances and become a creator of possibilities. The transformation that occurs when you align your identity with essence rather than appearances is nothing short of miraculous. Instead of saying, "I'm struggling financially," you declare, "I am abundantly supplied." Instead of complaining, "I can't afford this," you command, "Every need is met before it arises." You're not lying about your current situation. You're speaking from your spiritual position, which is higher than any physical condition. This journey requires you to make daily decisions about whether you'll speak from your throne or from your circumstances. Behind the scenes of every wealthy person's life, you'll find this principle operating consistently. They speak their vision before they see it, declare their abundance before they experience it, and command their success before they achieve it. Here's the hidden truth that revolutionizes everything. Your words aren't just communication. They're divine legislation. When you truly grasp this, your entire approach to speaking changes. You realize that every sentence you utter is actually a law being passed in the invisible realm, a royal decree that shapes the unseen, corridors of reality, and summons divine supply itself to respond. The profound impact of this understanding is that it places tremendous responsibility on every word you speak. You can no longer afford to use your voice carelessly, making idle comments about lack, limitation, or struggle. Every word becomes precious because you understand it carries the power to either expand or contract your financial reality. When you speak from this level of awareness, something extraordinary happens in the atmosphere around you. Your words don't just bounce off walls and disappear. They penetrate the invisible realm and begin rearranging spiritual forces. What is visible in your current circumstances must bow to what is vocal in your daily declarations, because spiritual law supersedes physical appearance. This revelation explains why some people can work incredibly hard, yet remain poor, while others seem to effortlessly attract wealth. It's not about effort or intelligence. It's about understanding the legislative power of speech. Those who prosper have learned, either consciously or unconsciously, to speak as lawmakers rather than as victims of their circumstances. The beautiful part of this discovery is that it's immediately applicable. You don't need to wait for your situation to improve before you start speaking with authority. The moment you understand that your word is legislation, you can begin issuing divine decrees that overrule every limiting condition in your life. Your voice becomes the bridge between the realm of infinite possibility and the world of manifest reality. When you declare, "I am wealthy," while your bank account shows otherwise, you're not being delusional. You're exercising the same creative authority that God used when He spoke light into darkness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that doubt attempts to infiltrate and cancel your spoken decrees. And if you don't understand how to protect your words from this spiritual sabotage, you can declare abundance for years without seeing tangible results. The key lies in understanding the difference between speaking from law versus speaking from emotion, and this distinction will determine whether your declarations create lasting transformation or temporary inspiration. Write in the comments, "My words are divine legislation," if you're ready to stop using your voice to describe limitations and start using it to decree your breakthrough. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to guard your spoken declarations from the most subtle form of spiritual interference. The most powerful revelation about the mechanics of spoken manifestation comes from understanding the spiritual physics revealed in Isaiah 55:11, where God declares that His word doesn't return to Him void, but accomplishes exactly what He pleases and prospers in the thing He sent it to do. This isn't religious poetry, it's a scientific principle, governing how divine creative force operates through spoken decree. Since you're made in God's image, your word carries this exact same nature when it's spoken from the right source. But here's where most people's declarations fail. They speak from emotional reaction instead of spiritual dominion. When you declare, "I am wealthy," while feeling desperate about your bills, your words are powered by fear, not faith. When you affirm abundance while internally panicking about money, your declarations return void because they're not flowing from union with the divine creative force within you. The transformation that must occur in your mindset is recognizing that words spoken from dominion carry a completely different frequency than words spoken from desperation. When you speak from your Christ consciousness, from that place of spiritual authority where you know who you are beyond circumstances, your words become unstoppable forces that accomplish exactly what you send them to do. Behind the scenes of every miraculous financial breakthrough, you'll find this principle operating with mathematical precision. The person didn't just speak positive words. They spoke from a place of spiritual certainty, from union with divine supply, from a consciousness that wasn't swayed by appearances or emotional turbulence. This journey requires you to understand the sacred sequence that governs all manifestation. Decree comes before deposit. Sentence comes before substance. Word comes before wallet. This isn't just a spiritual concept. It's the actual order of operations in the universe. Nothing appears in the physical realm without first being spoken into the invisible realm through divine decree. The profound impact of this understanding is that it completely reverses how most people approach wealth creation. Instead of trying to work their way to abundance and then speak confidently about it, they learn to speak with authority first and allow the abundance to follow their words. They treat their word like a gavel in heaven's courtroom instead of a hopeful wish tossed into the universe. When you remove uncertainty from your speech and replace it with clear declarations of spiritual truth, something extraordinary happens in the invisible realm. The spiritual world opens like a scroll, revealing pathways to prosperity that were always there, but invisible to doubt-clouded vision. Opportunities begin manifesting that seem perfectly timed. People appear with exactly what you need, and money flows through channels you never anticipated. This revelation transforms your daily decisions about how you speak. Every word becomes strategic because you understand that uncertain speech creates uncertain outcomes, while authoritative speech commands definite results. You stop saying, "I hope things get better," and start declaring, "Divine order establishes perfect conditions now." You stop asking, "When will my breakthrough come?" and start commanding, "My abundance appears now, under grace, in perfect ways." The hidden truth is that the universe responds not to the volume of your voice or the emotion behind your words, but to the spiritual authority from which you speak. When your declarations flow from your divine nature rather than your human circumstances, they carry the same creative power that spoke stars into existence. Your voice becomes a divine instrument through which infinite possibility flows into finite form. Each spoken decree becomes a bridge between the realm where all things already exist in perfect completion and the physical world where they manifest as tangible experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily practice that can train your consciousness to speak consistently from dominion rather than emotion, and it involves understanding how to protect your spoken word from the most dangerous form of spiritual interference, the contradictory thoughts that try to cancel your decrees immediately after you speak them. Write in the comments, "I speak from spiritual dominion," if you're ready to align your words with divine creative force and stop allowing emotional reactions to sabotage your declarations. Because what I'm about to share will revolutionize how you maintain the power of your spoken word throughout each day. The most life-changing shift that can occur in your consciousness is recognizing that your mouth isn't a casual communication device. It's a royal instrument of creation. Your voice isn't harmless background noise. It's legislative power that shapes reality. When you truly understand that every word you speak is a supernatural blueprint, a creative force, and a spiritual law being established in the invisible realm, everything about how you communicate transforms. This revelation completely dismantles the casual relationship most people have with their speech. They talk about money like they're just making conversation, complaining about bills like they're simply venting emotions, or joking about being broke like they're just being relatable. But when you understand the architectural power of your words, you realize that every casual comment is actually constructing your financial reality. Every complaint is legislating limitation, and every joke about lack is literally building poverty into your experience. The transformation that occurs when you start speaking as a sovereign rather than a servant is extraordinary. Instead of describing your circumstances like a victim reporting what's happening to you, you begin commanding your environment like a king issuing decrees that must be obeyed. Your entire relationship with money shifts from reactive to creative, from descriptive to legislative. Behind the scenes of this transformation lies one of the most profound spiritual principles: identity collapse. This isn't about losing who you are. It's about the moment when you stop speaking from what you see with your physical eyes and start speaking from what you already are in the invisible realm. It's when you cease identifying with your current bank balance and begin identifying with your divine inheritance. When this identity collapse occurs, something miraculous happens in your spiritual atmosphere. There's a sudden collapse of delay, a dissolution of waiting, an end to the exhausting cycle of trying to make things happen through human effort. You surrender into divine flow, where your spoken authority becomes the actual bridge. connecting the realm of infinite spiritual wealth with the world of tangible physical prosperity. This journey requires you to make daily decisions about which identity you'll speak from. Will you speak as someone who lacks, struggles, and hopes things get better? Or will you speak as someone who embodies abundance, commands resources, and expects divine provision to manifest exactly when and how it's needed? The profound impact of this mindset shift is that it eliminates the gap between your spiritual identity and your physical experience. When you speak consistently from your divine nature, the universe has no choice but to rearrange circumstances to match the frequency of your declarations. Your words become the organizing principle around which all money, opportunities, and resources begin to gravitate. This is why certain people seem to effortlessly attract wealth, while others struggle despite working twice as hard. It's not about intelligence, education, or even opportunity. It's about the level of consciousness from which they speak. Those who prosper have learned to speak from their divine identity rather than their human circumstances. The hidden truth is that the moment you stop trying to earn wealth and start speaking it into existence from your spiritual authority, everything accelerates. The delays that seemed permanent begin dissolving. The doors that appeared locked start opening. The money that felt far away starts flowing through unexpected channels. Your voice becomes the catalyst that transforms spiritual potential into physical reality. Each declaration spoken from your divine identity creates a vibrational pathway through which abundance can flow from the invisible storehouse into your tangible experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that your inner dialogue can either support or sabotage your spoken declarations. And most people unknowingly cancel their morning decrees with their afternoon thoughts. Understanding how to maintain inner-outer speech alignment is crucial for sustaining the flow of manifestation, because the moment your private thoughts contradict your public declarations, you create spiritual interference that blocks your breakthrough. Write in the comments, "I speak from my divine identity," if you're ready to stop describing your circumstances and start commanding your reality through the royal authority of your voice, because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to maintain unwavering spiritual alignment throughout your entire day. The most powerful demonstration of spoken authority comes through what I call divine repetition, the practice of speaking the same decree consistently until it becomes spiritual law. There was a woman who discovered this principle when she committed to speaking one specific declaration for 90 consecutive days. God is my unfailing supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways. This wasn't religious ritual or mindless repetition. This was a return to divine order, understanding that the same way God spoke, "Let there be light" once, and it became eternal law, your consistent spoken decree becomes established spiritual legislation. She wasn't performing for God's benefit. She was pronouncing what God had already ordained from the foundation of the world. The transformation that occurred through this journey reveals one of the most profound truths about wealth: manifestation. Behind the scenes of her financial breakthrough, there was no complicated strategy, no networking events, no business plans or investment schemes. There was simply the daily decision to speak from spiritual certainty rather than physical circumstances. What happened during those 90 days demonstrates the hidden mechanics of how the universe responds to human authority. For the first several weeks, nothing seemed to change in her external circumstances. Bills continued arriving. Her bank balance remained the same, and her logical mind questioned whether speaking these words was accomplishing anything tangible. But here's where the revelations become profound. The money wasn't being held back by economic conditions, timing, or external factors. It was being blocked by one thing only: contradiction in her speech patterns. Every time she declared abundance in the morning and then complained about expenses in the afternoon, she created spiritual interference that canceled her decree. The breakthrough came when she understood that the law of spoken manifestation asks only one question. What do you say? It doesn't inquire about your emotions, your doubts, your past experiences, or your current feelings. Divine law responds exclusively to the consistent authority of your voice, and the moment contradiction ceased in her speech, wealth began flowing through channels she never anticipated. This journey required her to make daily decisions about every word that came out of her mouth. She had to transform casual conversations about money, eliminate sarcastic comments about being broke, and stop agreeing with limitation even in seemingly innocent ways. Her tongue became sacred territory that couldn't be contaminated by doubt, fear, or casual negativity. The profound impact of this discipline was that her word became law through repetition, reverence, and rhythm. She wasn't trying to convince the universe to give her money. She was exercising the creative authority that had been dormant within her voice. The same power that maintains the orbit of planets responded to the consistent frequency of her declarations. When the 90 days concluded, her financial reality had completely transformed, not because she worked harder or discovered new opportunities, but because her spoken word had established new spiritual legislation that physical circumstances had to obey. Money appeared through unexpected sources. Debts were forgiven. Opportunities manifested that defied logical explanation. The hidden truth she discovered is that contradiction in speech is the primary obstacle to financial breakthrough. Most people declare abundance for a few minutes each morning and then spend the rest of the day speaking limitation, wondering why their declarations aren't producing results. They're unknowingly creating spiritual static that blocks the very supply they're trying to access. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that fear attempts to sabotage this entire process. And it's so subtle that most people don't recognize they're being manipulated back into poverty consciousness. The moment you begin speaking with genuine authority, there will be internal resistance that tries to convince you that declaring abundance while facing bills is somehow dishonest or unrealistic. Write in the comments, "My word becomes law through repetition," if you're ready to commit to the discipline of consistent declaration and stop allowing contradictory speech to block your financial breakthrough, because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to guard your spoken word from the most dangerous form of spiritual sabotage. The most insidious form of spiritual sabotage comes disguised as humility, realism, and what most people call being honest about your situation. The moment you begin declaring, "I am wealthy," while your bank account shows otherwise, there will be an internal voice that whispers, "Who are you kidding? You're just trying to get by. You're not enough. This isn't working." This voice represents the greatest obstacle to your financial transformation because it convinces you to speak from your circumstances rather than your authority. Every time you say, "I'm trying to make more money," "I'm working on improving my situation," or "I'm not there yet," you're actually declaring your identity as someone who exists in a perpetual state of effort without arrival, struggle, without breakthrough. The hidden truth behind this pattern is that until you stop calling yourself trying and start speaking from the Holy of Holies where I am dwells, you remain outside the treasury gates regardless of how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. The divine habit that creates lasting wealth is relentless identification with what's already true in the spiritual realm, even when it's completely unseen in physical form. This journey requires you to understand that I am isn't just positive thinking or motivational self-talk. When you say I am, you're not making an affirmation, you're creating an activation. You're literally connecting your consciousness to the generator of all form, announcing to every realm, visible and invisible, that you no longer speak from your senses, but from your source. Behind the scenes of this transformation lies one of the most profound revelations about how reality operates. When you declare, "I am wealthy," you're not describing your current bank balance or trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're accessing the same creative mechanism that God used when he revealed his name to Moses as "I am that I am." The profound impact of this understanding is that it shifts your entire approach to wealth creation. Instead of working to become wealthy, you begin speaking from the consciousness that you already are wealthy in the realm where all things exist in perfect completion. Your voice becomes the bridge that allows this spiritual reality to manifest in physical form. When you consistently speak from "I am" consciousness, something extraordinary happens in your mental and emotional atmosphere. The anxiety about money begins dissolving because you're no longer speaking as someone who lacks. The desperation for breakthrough disappears because you're no longer identifying as someone who's trying to arrive somewhere. You begin embodying the frequency of someone who has already arrived. This mindset shift creates what I call source consciousness, the recognition that if your source is divine, your substance must follow divine patterns. Just as God's spring contains only abundance, never lack, when you consistently speak from union with that divine source, your external circumstances must eventually align with the infinite nature of your spiritual supply. The revelations become even more powerful when you realize that every successful person throughout history has stumbled onto this principle, whether they understood the spiritual mechanics or not. They stopped speaking from effort and started speaking from identity. They ceased describing their journey and began declaring their destination. They quit talking about trying and started embodying being. Your daily decisions about language become crucial because every word either reinforces your divine identity or contradicts it. When you say, "I am abundant," instead of "I'm trying to get money," you activate spiritual forces that have been waiting for your clear instruction. When you declare, "I am prospered," rather than "I hope things get better," you connect with the generator of form that recognizes authentic authority. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily protocol that can help you maintain this "I am" consciousness throughout every challenge, bill, and apparent setback. But first, you need to understand why your morning declarations often get sabotaged by your afternoon thoughts and how to create unbreakable spiritual alignment between what you speak and what you think. Write in the comments, "I am wealthy in spirit now," if you're ready to stop speaking from trying and start speaking from divine identity. Because what I'm about to share will give you the exact daily practice that transforms "I am" declarations into manifest reality. The most critical moment in determining your financial reality happens within the first 60 seconds of consciousness each morning. This isn't about motivation or positive thinking. This is about metaphysical mastery, understanding that the very first words you speak upon waking become the architectural foundation for everything that unfolds throughout your day. Here's the transformation that must occur in your daily routine. Before you reach for your phone, before you check your bank balance, before you review your schedule or mentally rehearse your problems, you must speak your divine identity into the ether. When you speak first, you call forth the invisible forces that will orchestrate your day. When you declare early, you frame the atmospheric conditions through which all opportunities, conversations, and circumstances will flow. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their creative authority to whatever external information greets them first. They check their accounts and let numbers determine their mood. They scan news headlines and allow global chaos to set their mental frequency. They review their problems and spend their first conscious moments reinforcing limitation instead of commanding breakthrough. But when you understand that your voice is the first creative force to touch each new day, everything changes. Your morning declaration doesn't just affect your attitude. It literally programs the spiritual atmosphere through which your entire day will unfold. You're not just thinking positive thoughts. You're issuing divine legislation that invisible forces must obey. The profound impact of this understanding is recognizing that no day is neutral. Every morning sits at the edge of becoming, waiting for someone to take authority over its unfolding. Behind the scenes of what appears to be random daily experiences, there's actually a spiritual hierarchy at work. And the person who speaks with divine authority first gets to set the tone for everything that follows. This journey requires you to shift your identity from thermometer to thermostat. A thermometer reflects whatever conditions surround it, reacting to temperature changes with no ability to influence its environment. But a thermostat commands its environment, setting the desired temperature and then activating whatever systems are necessary to create those conditions. When you decree your abundance before your day begins, you're functioning as a spiritual thermostat, programming the invisible realm to produce the experiences that match your spoken frequency. Instead of dancing to the rhythm of appearances, bills, deadlines, problems, or other people's moods, you set the rhythm through your dawn declarations, and everything else must synchronize to your spiritual tempo. The hidden truth is that your morning words create what I call atmospheric permission for wealth to manifest throughout your day. When you declare, "I walk in divine provision today," you're not just speaking to yourself. You're giving instructions to the spiritual forces that orchestrate opportunities, conversations, and synchronicities. When you announce, "Money flows to me easily today," you're programming the invisible network through which financial blessings travel. This revelation explains why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle despite equal effort. It's not about intelligence, education, or even hard work. It's about who takes spiritual authority over their day first. Those who prosper have learned to speak their reality into existence before circumstances can speak to them. Your voice becomes the conductor's baton that orchestrates the symphony of your daily experience. Each morning declaration is like tuning an instrument, ensuring that every encounter, conversation, and opportunity resonates with the frequency of abundance rather than the discord of limitation. The beautiful part of this practice is its immediate accessibility. You don't need special training, expensive tools, or perfect conditions. The moment your eyes open, you have access to the most powerful creative force in the universe, your voice speaking from divine authority. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific enemy that tries to sabotage your morning declarations, and it comes disguised as urgent responsibilities, practical concerns, and the seemingly innocent habit of checking your phone immediately upon waking. Understanding how to protect your first moments of consciousness from this spiritual interference is crucial for maintaining the power of your daily identity declaration. Write in the comments, "I frame my day with divine declarations," if you're ready to stop letting external circumstances set your daily rhythm and start commanding your environment through the authority of your morning voice. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to guard those first precious moments from the forces that try to steal your creative power. The most profound revelation about daily transformation is understanding that the first word from your mouth each morning becomes the spiritual seed from which your entire day grows. This isn't symbolic language. This is metaphysical law. Heaven literally won't build what you haven't spoken, which means if you wake up silent or allow your first words to be complaints, worries, or reactions to external stimuli, you're essentially giving the universe no divine blueprint to follow. When you deliberately speak, "This is a day of divine provision," Before you think about breakfast, bills, or your task list, something extraordinary shifts in your relationship with time itself. You stop merely living through your day as a passive participant and start reigning over it as a conscious creator. Your voice becomes the royal decree that sets the tone, tempo, and trajectory for every encounter, opportunity, and experience that follows. This journey from reactive living to creative ruling requires you to recognize that your morning words don't just affect your attitude. They literally program the invisible forces that orchestrate your daily reality. Behind the scenes of what appears to be random daily events, there's actually a spiritual response system that takes its cues from your dawn declarations. But here's where the hidden truth becomes both liberating and sobering. The greatest threat to your spoken decrees isn't external opposition, economic conditions, or other people's negativity. The most dangerous enemy of your financial breakthrough is fear masquerading as wisdom, appearing in your thoughts dressed as safety, caution, and what most people call being realistic. The transformation that must occur in your mindset is recognizing fear for what it actually is, a reversal spell that systematically undoes every decree you've planted through your spoken word. Fear doesn't announce itself as the enemy of your abundance. Instead, it whispers seemingly reasonable thoughts like, "What if this doesn't work?" Or, "Maybe I should be more practical about my expectations," or, "I don't want to get my hopes up again." This internal dialogue appears so innocent, so rational, so protective, that most people welcome these thoughts as evidence of their mature, grounded approach to life. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is spiritual sabotage of the highest order. Every doubt you entertain after speaking your decree creates interference in the invisible realm, disrupting the very forces that were responding to your morning declaration. The profound impact of this understanding is realizing that fear is incredibly strategic in its approach. It rarely attacks your declarations directly. Instead, it waits until you've spoken abundance, then quietly introduces reasonable concerns that seem to have nothing to do with contradicting your faith. It might surface as worry about practical matters, concern about timing, or analysis of why your situation looks unchanged. This journey requires you to develop what I call spiritual discernment, the ability to recognize when seemingly logical thoughts are actually fear-based reversals designed to cancel your spoken authority. The moment you declare divine provision flows to me today, fear begins crafting subtle arguments about why you should temper that expectation, be more realistic about your timeline, or prepare for disappointment. The hidden truth is that fear understands the power of your spoken word better than most people do. It knows that if you maintain unwavering alignment between your morning decree and your ongoing thoughts, manifestation becomes inevitable. So it works over time to create internal contradiction, knowing that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Your daily decisions about which internal voice to amplify become the determining factor in whether your morning declarations produce breakthrough or remain empty words. When fear whispers doubt after you've spoken abundance, you're at a crucial crossroads where you either reinforce your decree or accidentally cancel it through entertaining limiting thoughts. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because fear has specific strategies it uses to infiltrate your consciousness, and they're so subtle that most people don't recognize they're being spiritually manipulated. Understanding these tactics is essential for protecting your spoken word from internal sabotage, because the moment you learn to identify and reject these fear-based reversals, your declarations begin manifesting with shocking speed and precision. Write in the comments, "I reject fear disguised as realism." If you're ready to stop letting doubt disguised as wisdom, cancel your divine decrees, because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to maintain unwavering faith in your spoken word, regardless of what circumstances or internal voices try to tell you. The most crucial spiritual discipline you can develop is learning to cancel nothing with fear, no matter how reasonable or justified that fear appears to be. This means, when late-night worries try to reverse your morning prophecies, you refuse to engage with their logic. When bill appearances attempt to undo your spoken blessings, you hold steady to your decree rather than allowing circumstances to rewrite your spiritual legislation. Here's the transformation that must occur in your understanding. Delay is not denial, silence is not absence, and what looks like nothing happening is often exactly where everything is forming in the invisible realm. Behind the scenes of every manifestation, there's always a gestation period where spiritual forces are arranging circumstances, aligning people, and orchestrating events that will bring your spoken word to pass. Fear understands this timing principle and uses it as its greatest weapon against your faith. It knows that if it can convince you during the waiting period that your declarations aren't working, it can trick you into canceling your own breakthrough through doubt-filled speech. This is why fear must be cast out completely, not reasoned with, negotiated with, or given any platform to present its case. The journey toward unshakable faith requires you to recognize that fear always arrives dressed in the garments of logical concern. It whispers, "It's been 3 weeks since you declared abundance and nothing has changed," or "Maybe you should be more realistic about your timeline," or "What if you're setting yourself up for disappointment?" These thoughts seem so reasonable, so protective, so wise that most people welcome them as evidence of mature thinking. But what's actually happening is spiritual terrorism disguised as practical wisdom. Every time you entertain these fear-based thoughts, you create interference in the invisible realm where your abundance is forming. You're essentially sending mixed signals to the universe, declaring wealth in the morning and questioning it in the evening, commanding provision at dawn, and doubting it at dusk. This is where the profound revelation about speaking from law versus emotion becomes absolutely critical. The universal law that governs manifestation responds exclusively to instruction, not emotion. Divine law doesn't require your mood to be perfect, your feelings to be aligned, or your heart to feel confident. It requires only one thing: your mouth speaking with unwavering authority. When you understand this principle, it transforms your entire approach to wealth creation. Instead of waiting until you feel wealthy to speak abundantly, you speak abundantly until wealth manifests in your experience. Instead of hoping your emotions will support your declarations, you make declarations that reprogram your emotions. You stop speaking as someone who needs to feel rich and start speaking as someone who commands riches. The hidden truth is that the most powerful declarations often come not when you feel inspired, motivated, or emotionally aligned, but when you choose to speak from spiritual law despite contrary feelings. When you declare, "I am abundantly supplied," while your bank account shows insufficient funds, you're not being delusional. You're exercising the same authority that creates galaxies and governs natural laws. This mindset shift moves you from speaking as a soldier who takes orders from circumstances to speaking as a general who issues commands to reality. You stop functioning as an orphan begging for provision and start operating as an heir, claiming your inheritance. You cease speaking as someone who reacts to conditions and begin speaking as someone who creates them. The profound impact of this understanding is that it makes your spoken word completely independent of your emotional state. Whether you feel scared or confident, worried or peaceful, confused or clear, your declarations carry the same creative power because they flow from eternal spiritual law rather than temporary human emotion. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily practice that can help you maintain this level of spiritual authority even when facing your most challenging financial situations. But first, you need to understand how to transform every bill, every debt, and every financial pressure from an enemy of your faith into an opportunity to exercise your divine dominion. Write in the comments, "I speak from spiritual law, not emotion," if you're ready to stop letting your feelings determine the power of your declarations and start commanding your reality from unwavering divine authority. Because what I'm about to share will revolutionize how you handle every financial challenge that comes your way. The most radical shift in your financial mindset happens when you stop trembling before invoices and start speaking to them as the spiritual authority you truly are. This transformation requires you to recognize that every bill in your mailbox isn't a threat to your peace or evidence of your limitation. It's actually a servant awaiting instruction, a piece of paper waiting for your prophetic declaration to transform it from burden into breakthrough. Most people make the critical mistake of speaking about their bills rather than to them. They complain to friends about how expensive everything is, worry to family members about making ends meet, or stress to themselves about mounting expenses. But when you understand the hidden truth about financial dominion, you realize that speaking about your bills gives them power over you, while speaking to your bills exercises your divine royalty over circumstances. Behind the scenes of this revelation lies one of the most profound principles of spiritual authority. Every invoice that arrives in your life is actually a stage for your word to perform. Each debt becomes a doorway to dominion. Each financial obligation an opportunity to demonstrate that you don't serve money. Money serves you through the creative power of your spoken decree. This journey requires you to completely reframe your relationship with financial obligations. Instead of seeing bills as curses that drain your resources, you begin recognizing them as invitations to exercise the same spiritual authority that Jesus demonstrated when he multiplied loaves and fishes, that Moses wielded when he struck the rock and water flowed, that Elijah activated when he commanded the widow's oil to multiply. The transformation that occurs when you start blessing your bills instead of cursing them is nothing short of miraculous. When you lay your hands on an invoice and declare, "This is already paid through divine provision," you're not engaging in wishful thinking. You're activating spiritual forces that have been waiting for your command. Angels literally begin moving on your behalf, and channels of supply start opening that human logic could never have arranged. The profound impact of this understanding is that it shifts you from victim consciousness to royal consciousness. Instead of feeling oppressed by financial obligations, you begin seeing each bill as an opportunity to prove that your God is bigger than any amount printed on paper. Every due date becomes a deadline for divine intervention to manifest through your spoken authority. This mindset shift requires daily decisions about how you'll respond when bills arrive. Will you panic and start calculating how you'll manage the payment, or will you place your hand on that piece of paper and command supernatural provision to fulfill it? Will you complain about the amount and stress about the timing, or will you bless the bill and thank divine substance for covering every obligation with ease? The hidden truth is that when you bless your bills and speak to them with spiritual authority, you create what I call financial alchemy, the transformation of apparent lack into abundant supply through the power of your voice. You're not denying the existence of the bill. You're declaring the superior existence of divine provision that makes every payment possible. Your daily interactions with financial obligations become opportunities to strengthen your spiritual muscles and prove to yourself that you really do have dominion over circumstances. Each time you speak to a bill instead of about it, each time you bless an expense instead of cursing it, you're training your consciousness to operate from the throne room, rather than the victim's chair. The revelations become even more powerful when you realize that this principle extends beyond just bills to every financial challenge in your life. Debt becomes an opportunity to command divine cancellation. Unexpected expenses become stages for miraculous provision. Late payments become platforms for supernatural acceleration. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific way that your inner dialogue can either amplify or completely cancel the power of speaking to your bills, and most people unknowingly sabotage their financial breakthrough by maintaining contradictory thoughts even while speaking positive words over their obligations. Write in the comments, "I speak to my bills, not about them," if you're ready to transform every financial obligation from a source of stress into an opportunity to exercise your divine authority. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to maintain unwavering spiritual alignment even when facing your most challenging financial situations. The most dangerous form of spiritual sabotage happens not in your public declarations, but in the secret conversations you have with yourself throughout the day. You can speak powerfully over your bills in the morning, declare abundance with conviction, and command provision with authority, yet completely cancel all of that creative power through the silent agreements you whisper in your inner speech when no one else is listening. Here's the hidden truth that most people never discover. It's not just your audible words that shape your financial reality. It's the continuous internal dialogue running like background software in your consciousness. When you declare, "I am abundantly supplied" out loud, but then quietly think, "I hope this actually works," or "What if I'm just fooling myself?" you create what I call spiritual static that disrupts the very forces responding to your spoken decree. This journey toward financial transformation requires absolute inner-outer alignment, where your private thoughts don't betray your public words. Your internal commentary must become as disciplined and intentional as your external declarations, because silent contradictions have the power to cancel even the most powerful morning decrees. The universe responds not just to what you say, but to the total vibrational frequency you're broadcasting, which includes every whispered doubt and every unconscious mental agreement with limitation. Behind the scenes of this principle lies one of the most profound revelations about manifestation. Your consciousness functions like a holy mirror where spirit reflects through form. When your inner and outer speech are perfectly aligned, speaking the same truth from the same divine authority, you create crystalline clarity in the invisible realm. But when they contradict each other, you create distortion that confuses the spiritual forces trying to respond to your command. The transformation that must occur is recognizing that identity is never passively discovered. It's actively declared through the authority of your voice. Most people wait for external circumstances to tell them who they are, letting their bank balance determine their identity, allowing their current situation to define their worth. But the hidden truth is that who you say you are determines what the world gives you, not the other way around. This mindset shift requires daily decisions about whether you'll speak your identity from your divine blueprint or from your current circumstances. When you declare, "I am rich," you're not pretending to be something you're not. You're participating in the same creative principle that spoke the universe into existence. You're aligning your consciousness with your spiritual DNA, which was designed in the image of infinite abundance. The profound impact of this understanding is that if your mouth doesn't know who you are, your bank account never will. Your spoken identity becomes the address where prosperity delivers its abundance. When you consistently declare, "I am wealthy," both audibly and internally, the universe begins rearranging circumstances to match that frequency, because spiritual law requires harmony between consciousness and condition. Your daily internal conversations become as crucial as your morning declarations. Every private thought either reinforces or contradicts the identity you've spoken. When you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford this," after declaring, "I am abundantly supplied," you're at a crossroads where you either strengthen your decree through aligned thinking or weaken it through contradictory inner speech. The revelations become even more powerful when you realize that wealthy people think differently not because they have money, but because they've learned to maintain inner-outer speech alignment. They don't just speak abundance publicly, they think abundantly privately. Their internal commentary supports their external declarations instead of sabotaging them. This requires developing what I call consciousness discipline, the ability to monitor and redirect your inner dialogue the same way you would guard your spoken words. Every thought becomes important because you understand that mental agreements with lack have the same creative power as spoken agreements with abundance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific daily practice that can help you identify and transform these unconscious inner agreements that may be canceling your breakthrough. And it involves understanding the crucial difference between your inherited thought patterns and your chosen spiritual identity. Write in the comments, "My inner and outer speech are aligned," if you're ready to stop letting private doubts cancel your public declarations and start maintaining perfect harmony between what you think and what you speak. Because what I'm about to share will give you the exact tools to create unshakable spiritual alignment in every area of your financial life. The most compelling evidence of spoken manifestation power comes from the true story of an artist who understood that supply doesn't come from talent, connections, or marketing strategies, but from the spiritual positioning of your voice. For 12 consecutive days, she woke up and declared with unwavering certainty, "My divine patron appears now." She didn't say it as a hope, a idea, wish, or a desperate plea. She spoke it as someone exercising divine authority over her financial reality. What happened behind the scenes during those 12 days reveals the hidden mechanics of how the universe responds to consistent decree. While nothing seemed to change in her external circumstances, spiritual forces were aligning, invisible connections were forming, and divine appointments were being orchestrated beyond her awareness. On the 13th day, an email arrived from someone who had been silently following her work, offering to fund her next series for an entire year. This transformation demonstrates one of the most profound truths about wealth creation. It wasn't her artistic ability that summoned the patron. It wasn't her brush that created the breakthrough. It was her voice, her boldness, her willingness to speak from spiritual authority rather than physical circumstances. Your decree, not your resume, becomes the magnet that draws prosperity toward you. The journey toward financial breakthrough requires you to understand that this principle applies to every area of your life. Whether you need clients, customers, investors, opportunities, or unexpected windfalls, the same spiritual law operates. Consistent spoken positioning creates invisible momentum that manifests as visible provision. But here's where the revelations become intensely practical. To harness this power systematically, rather than accidentally, you need what I call divine rhythm, a structured approach to speaking that creates sustained momentum in the invisible realm. The most powerful protocol I've discovered involves 3 specific declarations spoken at precise intervals throughout your day. The first declaration establishes your source. God is my instant and unfailing supply. This isn't a request for God to become your supply. It's a recognition and announcement of what already is. When you speak this with authority, you're aligning your consciousness with the infinite reservoir that never runs dry, never delays, and never fails to provide exactly what you need when you need it. The second declaration creates flow. I walk in rivers of money flowing from the unseen. This shifts your identity from someone who lacks resources to someone who moves through abundance like a natural element. You're not hoping for money to come. You're declaring that you exist in a constant flow of divine provision that streams from invisible dimensions into your tangible experience. The third declaration removes obstacles. All doors are open, all channels are free. This command dissolves every barrier, breaks every bottleneck, and clears every pathway between you and your abundance. You're not asking for doors to open. You're announcing that they already are open, commanding the universe to align with this spiritual reality. The profound impact of speaking these 3 declarations, morning, midday, and night, for 21 consecutive days without contradiction creates what I call wealth rhythm in your consciousness. Your mind begins operating from abundance frequency rather than lack frequency. Your emotions start expecting provision rather than fearing shortage, and your actions automatically align with someone who knows their supply is guaranteed. This transformation requires you to make daily decisions about maintaining consistency without contradiction. Every time you're tempted to complain about money, worry about bills, or speak limitation, you must return to these declarations and speak from your spiritual position rather than your physical circumstances. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific form of spiritual sabotage that tries to derail this 21-day protocol, and it comes disguised as humor, casual conversation, and seemingly innocent comments about money that can instantly cancel weeks of consistent declaration. Write in the comments, "I speak my supply into existence," daily if you're ready to commit to this 21-day rhythm of consistent declaration and stop leaving your financial breakthrough to chance. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to protect your spoken word from the subtle forms of self-sabotage that destroy most people's manifestation efforts. The most insidious threat to your 21-day declaration protocol comes disguised as harmless social interaction, casual humor, and what most people consider innocent conversation about money. You can maintain perfect discipline with your morning, midday, and evening declarations, yet completely sabotage your entire manifestation process with one just joking comment about being broke during lunch with friends. Here's the hidden truth that most people never realize. Every sarcastic laugh about expenses, every casual complaint about prices, every humorous comment about your financial situation is being recorded and judged by spiritual law with the same precision as your formal declarations. The universe doesn't distinguish between what you say seriously and what you say just kidding. It responds to the creative authority behind every word that exits your mouth. This revelation transforms your understanding of social interaction entirely. That moment when you joke with coworkers about being poor, laugh with friends about expensive gas prices, or make self-deprecating comments about your financial situation, what feels like harmless comedy is actually a curse disguised as conversation. You're using divine creative power to reinforce the very limitations you're trying to overcome through your disciplined declarations. The journey toward financial transformation requires you to recognize that humor, which mocks wealth, is spiritual sabotage dressed up as entertainment. Behind the scenes of every failed manifestation attempt, you'll find this pattern. People speak abundance in private, then unconsciously speak lack in public, wondering why their declarations don't produce results. They're creating spiritual static that cancels their own creative commands. Your words function as seeds that multiply after their kind, and also as blueprints that construct your future experience. This means you cannot afford to speak anything casually, because there's no such thing as throwaway phrases in the realm of spiritual law. Every sentence you utter is either building the financial reality you desire or constructing the limitation you're trying to escape. This understanding completely changes your approach to daily conversation. You become extremely selective about what exits your mouth because you understand that words are not just communication tools, they're world-building instruments. When you truly grasp that your casual comments carry the same creative power as your intentional declarations, every social interaction becomes an opportunity to either strengthen or weaken your manifestation efforts. The transformation that must occur is recognizing the eternal principle that governs all creation. In God's economy, the spoken word is always the pioneer that walks ahead of manifestation. From the moment God declared, "Let there be light," and light appeared, to Jesus commanding, "Come forth, Lazarus," and death releasing its grip, the pattern is absolute and unchanging. Word precedes wealth, decree comes before deposit, spoken authority summons substance into form. This reveals why nothing moves in your financial reality until you move your mouth with divine authority. Your bank account isn't waiting for the economy to improve. Your opportunities aren't delayed by market conditions, and your breakthrough isn't held back by external circumstances. Everything is waiting for your voice to issue clear, consistent, uncontradicted commands that give spiritual forces permission to rearrange physical reality. The profound impact of this understanding is that it places complete responsibility for your financial transformation exactly where it belongs. In your mouth, not in your circumstances. You stop waiting for external validation and start exercising internal authority. You cease hoping for better conditions and start commanding divine provision regardless of appearances. Your voice becomes the bridge between the realm where all possibilities exist in perfect completion and the physical world where they manifest as tangible experience. Each word you speak either constructs that bridge or creates interference that blocks manifestation from flowing from spirit into form. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a final crucial element that determines whether your spoken word creates lasting transformation or temporary results. And it involves understanding the difference between speaking from your inherited belief system versus speaking from your chosen spiritual identity. Write in the comments, "My words build my world," if you're ready to guard every casual comment. And joke about money, understanding that your voice carries world-building power in every conversation. Because what I'm about to share will give you the ultimate key to ensuring your spoken declarations create permanent rather than temporary change in your financial reality. The ultimate key to transforming spoken declarations into manifest reality lies in understanding that you must write your wealth decree from heaven's perspective, not from your current conditions. This means when you sit down to craft your personal financial declaration, you don't look at your bank balance, consider your current income, or factor in your present circumstances. Instead, you write from the viewpoint of infinite divine supply, where lack doesn't exist and abundance is the only reality. This journey requires you to step completely outside the limitations of your five senses and compose your decree from the realm where God sees you, already blessed, already provided for, already walking in the fullness of divine prosperity. When you write, "I am abundantly supplied with every good thing," you're not describing what you hope will happen. You're documenting what already is in the spiritual dimension. The transformation that occurs when you speak this written decree aloud, morning, noon, and night, creates what I call atmospheric pressure in the invisible realm. You're not speaking to impress anyone, not trying to convince God of anything, and not hoping that maybe something will shift. You're legislating spiritual reality into physical form, establishing divine law through the authority of your consistent voice. Behind the scenes of this process, something profound happens in the heavenly realms. Every time you speak your decree, you're not predicting what might happen, you're birthing divine substance into manifestation. Your words become the labor pains through which spiritual wealth delivers itself into your tangible experience. Each declaration pushes divine provision closer to breakthrough, until finally the atmosphere bends and heaven responds with unmistakable evidence. This understanding reveals your true identity and calling in the earth. You weren't born to bow before lack, to negotiate with limitation, or to accept scarcity as your portion. You were designed to reign in abundance, to command resources through spiritual authority, and to demonstrate that divine supply never runs short for those who know how to speak from their heavenly position. The profound impact of this mindset shift is that it changes not just what you say, but how you say it. You stop speaking as the world speaks, with doubt, fear, uncertainty, and limitation. Instead, you begin speaking as heaven speaks, with divine structure, absolute certainty, and unwavering authority. Your conversation about money transforms from earthly complaint to heavenly command. Your daily decisions about speech become decisions about identity. Will you speak as someone who lacks resources or as someone who commands them? Will you use your voice to describe problems or to decree solutions? Will you talk like the world talks about money, with stress and strain? Or will you speak like heaven speaks about provision, with confidence and certainty? The revelations become even more powerful when you understand that your word is not merely a phrase you utter into empty space. Your spoken decree is spiritual force that rearranges invisible elements, aligns divine appointments, and commands circumstances to shift. When your word becomes established law through consistent declaration, the physical world has no choice but to bend and conform to the spiritual legislation you've enacted. This is the moment when you stop being a victim of financial circumstances and become the author of financial reality. You cease reacting to what money does and start commanding what money must do. You quit hoping for breakthrough and start legislating it through the royal sea. Authority of your voice, speaking from your divine inheritance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's one final crucial element that separates those who speak wealth into temporary existence from those who establish permanent financial transformation. And it involves understanding how to maintain this level of spiritual authority even when facing the most intense opposition, criticism, or doubt from the people around you. Write in the comments, "I am the voice of divine provision," if you're ready to stop speaking from earthly limitation and start legislating from heavenly authority, because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to maintain unwavering spiritual dominion regardless of what circumstances or people try to tell you about your financial situation.